Listen, we've got a great call lined up. I am excited about today's call. I'm excited about our guest speaker today. Let me tell you about this young man for those that don't know. He was in ACN before I got in ACN. He was already a senior vice president down in the LA area. Has a large organization in the United States that reaches all. I mean, just man, I could go through the list of who's in his organization. But I was really impressed. Not only that, but he went to Australia, moved his family to Australia to go build Australia. And then from there, he built a big organization in Korea. And I'm just excited to have him on the call. I spent some time with him in Africa. Me and his wife, Andrea, and myself, we had got a car and we went around Africa. It was so great having fun with him. And I can't wait for you to hear from him. He was with us about a month or so ago. We asked him to come back. He said, anything you need, I'll be back with you. And he's such a professional and such a perfectionist in this business, which I love it. Without further ado, Senior Vice President, the great, the one and only Mr. Brian Sax.
Hello, everyone.
Good morning.
Hey, my honor to be here. And I mean, it was actually just a few weeks ago that I talked to everybody, yes?
Yes.
All right, we are here for round number two, and maybe even some questions and answers there at the end. But again, I know all of you were on that Zoom that we did before, but all of you know how I feel about one of my best friends, Al Thomas. You know how, in my opinion, fortunate and lucky you are to be working with somebody like that. And I'll say it again, like I said a few weeks ago, but very few people in multi-level marketing have the good fortune to be able to work with someone like Al, somebody who has had a lot of success and truly cares, puts other people first. Maybe 1 out of every 100 people in network marketing have a chance to work with somebody like Al. So just don't take that for granted, because I know that there's some of you who have been with the team and you're on lots of leadership calls and meetings and all of this, but you don't really realize how fortunate you are. So please don't take all this for granted. Deal? All right, great. Let's talk. So I was asked to talk a little bit more about building Australia. In my background, and I'll summarize this time, is engineering. So after high school, I went to Princeton University and I studied, I ended up studying, more of the sciences. I wanted to be a physician originally. So I did pre-med, but I got a degree in civil engineering with certificates in geological engineering and environmental engineering. And of course, I completed pre-med too. And then I'll tell you this story. So it was before my senior year in college. And I was thinking to myself, I'm not terribly excited about being a physician and going to med school. And so I interviewed 10 people that I knew who were physicians and said, in confidence, I'll never tell anyone. Tell me what your thoughts are if you were in my shoes, just going into senior year and before med school. 6 out of 10 of them said, you know what? If I had it all over again, I would not be a physician. And they listed all the reasons. And it freaked me out, having to be tied to one area, being at the beck and call of your patients. If you actually moved, you have to build up a whole new patient base in most areas. And, all the stress associated. And so, you know what? So I said, I'm out. So I finished pre-med and didn't really know what I wanted to do. All I knew was I wanted to run track and field for the United States. So after I graduated, I moved out to Colorado. I coached at a Division II school up there, UNC in Greeley, and University of Northern Colorado in Greeley. And I was actually sleeping on someone's floor. And my dream back then was track and field. And that's one of the reasons I love dreamers, because I went from one dream, and when that dream didn't work, maybe it took 15 months until I ran out of money. I got maybe $40,000 in credit card debt. Then to move back to Los Angeles, moved in with my parents. I mean, obviously I was still dreaming, but while I was an engineer 70 hours a week, and I was going crazy. And some of you know the story. I'd sit out in the parking lot before work each day, and my stomach would burn. I dreaded going in so much. And so I only lasted 9 months in engineering because I saw ACN. And 10 minutes into the presentation, I mean, literally 10 minutes in, I said, this is what I want to do. This is it. That's what I want to do. I saw the big picture. Now, I had no experience with multi-level marketing. I had no experience with sales, no business experience. And so my assumption, and I'm an idealist versus being a realist. So without even questioning anything, I assumed the company was on solid financial footing. I assumed that the owners were great guys. I made all these different assumptions. And how lucky, because if it had been the same presentation, but it had been Amway, I would have been in. If it would have been Herbalife, I would have been in. Jeunesse, I would have been in because I had never seen multi-level. But how lucky did I get that it was actually a great company with wonderful owners? The reason why we've lasted 27 years and will last another 100 years is because because of the owners. I mean, the owners are unique, singular people, just wonderful people, and they're really good at business too. Sometimes you can be really good on the marketing side, but terrible in business, and the business fails. If you're really good on the business side but bad in marketing, the business fails. So our ownership team, the 5 guys, you got all 4 of them, plus you got Dave Stefanowski, Robert's brother. I mean, just a wonderful group, such a great group to have together. They complement each other perfectly. So one of the things I was telling you, don't take Al for granted. One of the things that I do every day is I do not take ACN for granted, or the 5 gentlemen who own the company. I do not take that for granted because I got so lucky. I mean, we all got so lucky. So as you know, I went to work. I worked really hard in ACN, and I struggled for the first few years. I went from one friend's floor for 18 months onto another friend's floor for another 18 months, but finally hey, Jamar, how are you, man? I just saw you there. What's happening? One of my favorite guys that I met in Australia, actually. Okay, we're going to get to that. So after I achieved senior vice president, then the company said, we're going to open up Australia. So I was newly married, and so we said, let's go. And so we went down to Noosa, which is 2 hours north of Brisbane, and lived there for 7 years, had 2 children. And so the opening Australia process, I want to talk to you about that. So it's not essential to move somewhere. The only reason why we decided to move is because we didn't have any children at the time. And we said, why not? Why not? We'll go down there, we'll experience the culture. And we ended up traveling. I actually looked at my passport after, years later, after we moved out. And I calculated that 17 weeks a year on average, about 1/3 of the year, we were traveling around doing non-ACN things. So we really got immersed in the culture in Australia and New Zealand. And we even took trips to Europe and all this from there. But again, who likes travel and adventure? ACN is the perfect business for travel and adventure. There's always a reason to go somewhere and to build a team and have fun and to explore and to do all that. I know Al loves adventure. I mean, Al's all about adventure. And so I know that's one of the reasons that we all get enthralled by the possibilities of international expansion. But it turned out, when I was actually starting to build Australia, what I would do is I made friends really fast with a group of people over the phone. And maybe I had a list of 30 people before it launched. And I would call them every 2 days to answer questions, talk to them, get them excited, maybe talk to a couple of their people. And I was doing most of my work late at night because of the time difference. And I mean, I would be up until 4 a.m., sometimes 5 a.m., just on the phone, talking. And I didn't necessarily need to move to Australia, but after I took a few trips there before the launch. And then I said, why not? And Andrea said, why not? And so we ended up going down there. And it was just a great experience. And just being immersed in the trenches. Now, there's other people who did it just by traveling back and forth, which you can totally do. You can totally travel back and forth and build a team. But But I truly believe in supporting people as much as humanly possible. There's some people who some leaders where, they'll leave messages, or actually they'll receive messages and they won't call back for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And maybe sometimes they don't call people back at all. I always had that, maybe it was an OCD thing, but where I needed to call back every single person, return every email. If anybody has an issue, I was always on. And I found that when I was in Australia, I could actually do that face to face. It was much easier building a team when I can actually do that face to face. Now with Zoom, it doesn't matter as much anymore. But the whole range is open to you. There's one of three options. Option number one, you can go to countries, get in the trenches, work, have fun, do all that. And actually you can move there. Number two, you go back and forth. So you have the best of both worlds. You can do all the exploring and the fun, adventure, support the team. And you could also be living at home and, and just having your home base wherever it is. Option number three is never going to those countries that you open. Just doing it by Zoom and finding 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 people on your team that want to go and open up those countries. Who likes those options? Isn't it great that some of you, like maybe there's a country you're not too excited about that's opening, but you say, I really want to capitalize anyways. Wouldn't it be great just to be sitting back at home, enjoying your life, enjoying your family time and everything that you do, knowing that there's a team building 24/7 in one or more countries, and that you don't even have to go to that country? Who thinks that's great? Fantastic. It's all available to you. And now with the Zoom component, it makes it a lot easier to do everything from home. Way easier to do everything from home. But over a 7-year period, I built, and I didn't, before COVID, who did most of their ACN work around where you live? Right? Most people do. That's how it mostly works in multi-level. The last time I actually worked hard in my home market in ACN, where I lived, was in 2002. For the last 19 years, I have done most of my work, all of my work actually, outside of my area. For example, when I was in Noosa was very isolated. I never really did anything seriously in Noosa in Australia. 2 hours south was Brisbane. I did do some stuff there. When I built Auckland, I built this meeting center in Auckland, where we were putting in 1,500 IBOs a month, 375 per week, just out of one meeting. And we met on Wednesdays and Saturdays. And what I would do from Noosa is I'd hop in the car early on each Wednesday morning. I'd drive to the airport, a couple hours, get through customs, wait another hour. I would fly on over to Auckland, which is maybe 3.5 hours. And then after I went through customs there, I went over to a house that we had rented. A bunch of, 15 of us had a house we had rented. And then I would do a meeting, and it was 9 hours of total time to get there. And then I would do more meetings on Thursday and Friday, and just little meetings, another big meeting on Saturday, and I'd come back. I did that for 6 months straight. I never missed a week for 6 months, consistency, and building up that meeting. I mean, that was a really exciting meeting. We would have, on an average day when we were peaking, we probably had 50 people promoted as ETT and 10 ETLs every single meeting. And of course, there were usually one or two, or possibly 3 TCs a week. Who'd like that kind of momentum? Not bad? Well, that's possible. Remember, anything's possible. What kind of person wins in ACN? What kind of person are you looking for? Well, I want to tell you why I love Los Angeles so much. Besides the cultural diversity, I love Los Angeles because it's a city of dreamers. I grew up here in the 80s, and I'd go down to Hollywood, And you had all these people out here who just came here just to find their dreams. They'd be walking around, with their guitars on their backs. And they usually would have 2 or 3 other jobs. I know Guns N' Roses actually for a while lived out of a a storage trailer. People did whatever it took to make it happen. And I still have friends and kids who just come out here and, hey, we're coming to Los Angeles, try to make it in the music industry, try to make it in Hollywood. And I love that. I love it. I'd rather surround myself with bright-eyed, bushy-tailed people who are idealistic, who want to go after their dreams, that are abundance mentality. Sky's the limit. And if you can, a lot of you are already that kind of person. A lot of people, all of you probably already have gotten a lot of flack from people who are not dreamers. So my advice is keep on dreaming and you'll attract those people. Now, when you have somebody who's a dreamer and who's willing to work really hard, then you have the magic. Does that make sense to everybody? Right? And then Korea, let me tell you about Korea. Did I tell the whole Korea story last time or not, Al? Do you know? No? Do you guys want to hear the Korea story? Are you sure I didn't tell it last time? A little bit?
Just a little bit.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you my Korea story. So one of the reasons I had moved to Australia was Asia Pacific, to be right there, to actually open up Asia proper, Southeast Asia. So in Japan and Korea finally opened in I believe 2010. After years of talking, it finally opened. And as it was opening, I got excited. I said, you know what? This is going to be the best launch ever. I'm going to spend lots of time. I took 6 trips back and forth from Australia and ran into all kinds of people who said stuff like, oh, Brian, I'm so excited. I've got 10,000 people I'm going to bring over, 5,000, 20,000, all these people who said, we're going to bring over so many people to ACN. We've never seen a company like that. So I was so excited. I totally thought that things were going to go incredibly great. And you got to spend a lot of money. We had to spend a lot of money in Korea because people expect, you to actually take them out to dinner and to do all those things, wine and dine and treat. I know that more than once, Debbie Davis had $5,000 checks that she had to pay for big dinners, and me too. So it was coming up on the launch. I was really excited. I was thinking, man, I can have 100,000 IBOs. I mean, this could be really huge. And the first step was people just signing up for $30. And then the next step after that was people signing up for more. And so I thought, man, there's gonna be 100,000 people who sign up for $30 to get started. This is gonna be great. And I had one main group that I spent 90% of my time in my open line, brand new line. And so that's the one I was focused on. So who here would be excited if you had done what I did, spent all this time? I was working 14 hours a day, 16 hours a day, huge bags under my eyes. I remember one time my back was hurting so much, I actually had to take codeine and get through all these meetings. Dust settled, everybody got in. Who here would be okay with it? Or maybe even excited if instead of 100,000, you had 50,000 people who signed up? Who'd be okay with that? Who'd be okay? Well, I didn't have 100,000 people sign up. I didn't have 50,000 people sign up. Who here would be okay with just 10,000 people? 10,000. I didn't have 10,000. Who'd be okay with 5,000? How about 2,000? Guess how many people I had sign up in that group for just $30? I had 30 people sign up. 30. Yeah, Al, exactly. Now we train not to get bummed out, depressed, any of that, in ACN, because it's all ups and downs. But I have to admit, for a very brief period of time, for about an hour, I was upset. And let me tell you about this guy, Mr. Coombe. there's a guy named Mr. Coombe, and Mr. Coombe, he was always saying every time I came out there through an interpreter, hey, Brian, you got to meet all my people. You got to take them out to dinner. And so probably I took him out to dinner, probably 7, 8 times for he and his people, 30 people at a time. And so I remember this was my 11th trip back there. I did 6 beforehand. I did 5 during the process and after the process. My 11th trip. And so Mr. Coombe had only put in probably maybe 20 people at $30. And I mean, really, really terrible. And so he came up to me and said, hey, Brian, hey, before you leave, Mr. Brian, can you please take us all out to dinner? And I said, Mr. Coombe. And who's ever felt like you were being taken advantage of? And I must have spent $10,000, $12,000 on meals for Mr. Coombe's team, maybe more. And I told him, listen, Mr. Coombe, you know me, I'll do anything for you. But, I really feel like, perhaps I was taken advantage of a little bit here. So I will go out to dinner with you guys. No problem. Spend time, talk to everyone, take photos, but I just can't pay for it, man. I'm sorry. I just can't, because, you only have like 20 people in, and, I think it's about, free meals. And he said, okay. So we get to the end of the dinner, take pictures, all that kind of stuff. And Mr. Coombe makes an announcement through his interpreter. Thank you so much, Mr. Brian, for everything you've done, not just now, the last few months. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for paying for dinner. And so I was like, no, no, man, come on. And I took Mr. Coombe aside and I said, Mr. Coombe, come on, man, we talked about this. And it's a big deal in the Korean culture if you look bad in front of everybody else. And so I knew that walking away would make him look bad. And I thought, all right, that's it. He's done. Because I said, I've got to go, man. Like I gave him a big hug. I'm sorry, man. I just can't do this. I can't be taken advantage of with this. But good luck. Let me know if you need anything. And I thought he was going to quit, but he didn't. He stuck around. And with this little tiny team, he kept going to the office. ACN spent like $20 million. They had an office out there, kept going back and built his team a little bigger. Maybe 8 months down the line, he was a TC, which is the equivalent of RD. And then he had one person join his team. And that one person led to one person led to a superstar. Within 8 months, that new person was bringing in 2,000 IBOs per month. Not at $30. The cost to get in at that point was somewhere around $800, $900 US, which is very expensive because in Korea, the cost of living and the amount you make, your earning power is a lot less. And so it's kind of like if it were $2,000 to $3,000 to get in the United States. But the team built huge. It built great, and and a lot of Japan came in underneath that team, and Mr. Coombe, guess how he's doing today? Jamar thinks he's out, right? But that's the thing about ACN. That's the thing about ACN, because Mr. Coombe was not great at network marketing before this. He was just not great. He was not great with people. Who's ever had someone who joined your team and they brought great people, but they didn't see it and they kind of quit and they could have made tons and tons of money? So who thinks that that's what happened to Mr. Coombe? Mr. Coombe stuck in there. He stuck in there. Mr. Coombe became a regional vice president. I think he might have been one of the highest paid regional vice presidents that there was in the world. It was crazy. I mean, it was crazy. It was, you wouldn't even comprehend how much it was. You think of SVP money. I would say that maybe double or triple the average SVP money that you think SVP is good. And that's what he was doing as an RVP. It was really, really good. We were very excited for him. And now he's SVP. He's SVP. So that the experiences that you have in ACN, if as long as you work hard enough, then magic will eventually happen, right? So everything comes back around. All this is statistical probability. I thought that Korea was going to be my worst launch. Well, I thought it was going to be the best launch. And then I was like, this is the worst launch. But then in terms of teams, it's one of my two biggest teams now in the world. And so just as long as you're willing to work hard, the harder you work, the more the numbers will work out, the more all this will come back around, the more fortunate you'll be. And now, before COVID, I went out there for 29 days straight on the biggest trip. We helped, get a whole bunch of good stuff going. I spent some time in Japan. And then Akiko knows this. Akiko. And she's one of our interpreters out there in Japan too. So now actually after COVID calms down, then I'm going to be out there a lot. And then obviously there's talk of Malaysia and Singapore, which is great for 2023. And so I've been waiting a long time for some of these other countries to open. I'm super excited about Japan and Korea and going into these other countries. Now for all of you, you've got the ability to work into these countries, because in the United States, everybody knows everyone and knows everyone who knows people in these countries. But all the Latin American countries will open over the years to come, as will the rest of the countries in Southeast Asia. So that's where we stand right now. Those are my Australia and Korean stories. Does anybody? Is it time for questions now? What do you think?
Okay, yeah, let's do about 4 or 5 questions real quick for you, sir.
You got it. And then I've got a favor to ask before everybody leaves.
I just wanted to tell you, Mr. Sax, I actually was with Dakota Bragg at a training years ago in Long Beach. And I think I took the most notes ever, 10 pages from what you said. And I just wanted to tell you, I appreciate you for always doing what Mr. Thomas does, keeping the presentation simple. I think the presentation was like 8 minutes or something. And I was blown away. And we keeping it short since then. But thank you for always being there as a leader outside of your own team for us. So I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, Julian, it's my honor.
I'm going to highlight a couple of things that Mr. Sax said. Number one, he loves dreamers. Every one of us on here are dreamers. He said he's idealistic, not realistic. Now, he also said that one person, they were putting over there in Australia 375 IBOs a week. I know some of you can't wrap your minds around that. Even when I told you I put 10,000 in my organization some months back in my old company, but it's realistic, it could happen. Next, he said 9 hours to get over to New Zealand and back. He did that for 6 months straight. Think about the commitment level that Mr. Sax is on the wavelength he's traveling. 10 ATLs every meeting and 3 TCs a week, or RDs in our case. Think about it. You know why he loves LA? Because LA is a city of what he said, dreamers. Folks, looking for the dreamers. He says, keep dreaming. Plus, you have to work hard. He was signing, he went over there, put all that time and money and effort in. See, to think about it, learn from this. You don't have to travel like Mr. Sax right now, but 30 people at $30 after spending 12 grand. And folks, we can't get people to spend $39 or $40 to get on the Zoom call training in 60 days, 60 days, excuse me. And I love the idea. You guys heard a lot of the speakers talk about you're one person away from your big breakthrough. What did Mr. Sax said? He got one person that got one person in Korea that got one person that got this person to put 2,000 IBOs per month. And it cost them $800 US. And I know that person. And this guy went on to make, I know who that person is. And that guy went on to make tons of money. And not only that, built a big organization. And the last thing he said that I love, he said, if you work hard enough, the magic will happen. You got to work a little harder. Anybody have a question real quickly before we let Mr. Sax go? Because he's got something he wants to share. He's something he wants to say. If not, Mr. Sax, back to you to say what you want to say, sir.
Great. I've got a favor to ask. Who knows my daughter, Tiffany Sax? Anybody seen her on Facebook or anything? All right, she's a runner. Here she is. One second. She's just turned 15. There's Tiffany Sax right there. She's competing as a freshman for Newberry Park. Newberry Park, out of the 24,000 cross country teams in the U.S., their girls team is number 4. And so Tiffany's number 2, and she's got Olympic aspirations. I mean, she talks and talks and talks, track and field and or triathlon. But she's starting her social media presence within the next week. She's going to start with Instagram. So, and I'm never been into the followers thing and all that stuff because, we don't necessarily need that in ACN to do well. But do me a favor. When she gets her Instagram, I'm going to give that to Al. Could all of you just do me a favor and just and follow her? And I want to make her feel good. I want her to be able to do this and start posting her stuff to her, and the road to her Olympics in the future. And you know how it feels when you got a lot of followers, right? It feels great. So could you guys help me and do that?